Welcome to a bit of an UberCube After Dark episode. So this is
in
Anthony
the middle
and I,
of the day.
In the middle of the day, yeah. This is like 20 to 2, sorry. It's July 5th. It was a holiday yesterday here in the United States, and all the fun was had. You know, drinking and ham sandwiches and fireworks.
And the British guy lighting the fireworks on the 4th.
I was, and getting very animated, very excited about it. And earlier today, we recorded an episode with the three of us. May was unable to join us for this recording, but we figured it's that time of year. It's holiday season. People have got vacations coming up. Anthony just came back from Alaska. I myself am going away for a couple of weeks coming up very soon. So we wanted to get a couple of episodes in the books so we would have some backup. And I've had this kind of in the back of my mind for some time when it comes to discussing the vintage cube, right? So we're going to do a little vintage cubey, chatty, not really much in the way of show notes or prep for this one. We just figured let's pull a couple of lists up and see what we can go through. We're going to start with a story that Anthony told me today, which I think is very cute. I love... This is another great example of read the card, because sometimes when you read the card, you can have that epiphany of, oh my goodness, this is so good. I can win this game and everything is just lining up so well for me. And sometimes can kind of have a bit of an opposite effect. Anthony, tell us your story. What happened to you and why did it happen?
I felt dumb. We did a Winston draft. Me and my buddy Christian, we were sitting we've Winston draft my vintage cube about 2 nights ago, and we figured just hang out, and we're just having a good time. And he has pitched to his graveyard a Sundering Titan. And I am getting beat to death with his kind of mishmash because it is a Winston draft. You don't have perfect mana. You've kind of got to adapt, sometimes play 3-4 colors. The word splash gets overly used because Winston drafts, that's what happens in them. You don't build the best constructed deck. So it can be a pile of cards. But his pile of cards is better than my pile of cards. And he's coming at me, but I see that he just pitched a Sundering Titan. And I'm thinking, this is a great opportunity. So I'm thinking I can recover by getting Sundering Titan out and blow up some of his lands. I forget what he's representing because he is a mishmash and I'm a lot more focused in my deck. I believe I was Rakdos at the time, and I'm a Rakdos at the time, and he's 4 colors. So Sundering Titan's going to do a lot of work, at least I believe. But I play Sundering Titan down by reanimating from his graveyard to do a recovery to get in front of some of his, mid-range mishmash that he's attacking me with, forgetting that I have a Dryad of Elysian Grove on my side of the board, because I was actually splashing a little bit of green, so I'm kind of Jundish, I guess, in this deck.
Okay.
So Dryad of the Elysian Grove reads as follows. For 2 colorless and 1 green, you get an enchantment creature, Nymph. You may play an additional land on your turns. Lands you control are every basic land type in addition to the other types.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now go to Sundering Titan.
Sundering Titan, 8 mana for a 7/10 artifact creature golem.
7/10, that's right.
7/10. When Sundering Titan enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield, choose a land of each basic land type, then destroy those lands.
So my big brain saw 7/8.
Let's start out with how many lands did you have left after this little play of yours?
I think I destroyed like 3 of my lands and maybe 1 of his. It didn't work out the way I was thinking it was. It's just a little funny little thing that happens, and we're sitting around having a good time, and I just stuck to it. We didn't do no take backsies, so I just kind of owned the mistake, and I thought it was noteworthy of a little bit of conversation.
Now, what you should have done is you should have made sure that you had your Titania Protector of Argoth out.
Then it would have been better.
And destroyed all of your own lands.
Yes.
And then you would have had 5/5/3s.
Mistakes were made. But I think that's a good little interlude to what we're going to talk about during this episode. Like you said, we're going a little loosey-goosey here, but Stu had some stuff he wanted to bring up. So he's going to volley. I'm going to volley back. Let's go.
Well, okay, so there's been some discussion. Some positive, some negative. Everyone seems to have an opinion one way or the other about the level of power that they believe is appropriate for either their own vintage cube or, how they see a lot of the real top end that really doesn't see much as far as a lot of these cards that we're going to talk about are not in the traditional vintage cube list. They're not in Anthony's list. They're not in Sandwich's list. They're not in a lot of lists that I've looked at when we've played other people's cubes. But let's be honest, vintage cube power always to me has dictated that you're going to try and put the strongest cards that have existed in Magic within it, depending on the size of the list. And a couple of these cards, for whatever reason, are seen as particularly egregious, unfun, not the kind of cards, not the kind of vibe that the curators want to have in their list, right? So the first one I'm going to pull up as the example is Time Vault, right? So Time Vault, absolutely classic, was a win condition card in Vintage for a long time, right? Goes infinite with Voltaic Key and Manifold Key, and basically comes into play. You untap it, you tap it, you untap it, tap it, you make infinite turns, and you go off and win. Not a card that you have in your cube, Anthony.
That is correct.
Not a card that we see in Samage's Vintage Cube. It is a card combo that we do see in our good friends Sam's Cube.
That is featured at CubeCon 2025.
That is featured.
So everybody knows that's there.
Be
now.
aware.
Yes.
And also, as we should say, don't ever pass Time Vault. Like ever.
I did it because it's funny.
You might, yes.
Just to punish him for putting it in there.
Just to punish him for putting it in there. Mistakes were made. I want to first of all get your thoughts. I know that you don't run these. Why? I'm just asking for a simple explanation why, to you, you don't see them as appropriate for your Power Cube.
I try to limit the number of proxies. That's one thing. While I do run some proxies of some very expensive cards that I don't have, and I do have like the AB duels, but I don't put them in here. I try to avoid as many proxies, not because I'm anti-proxy, it's because sometimes proxy quality is a little hard to get my hands on, I guess, and I don't want printed out cards in this cube. And if I'm going through all those hurdles to try to add that card, I'm thinking that just takes slot equity. I got to cut something for it that's a little bit more fun. And the second part of that, I just don't find that particular combo fun. That is important. We've talked about this before. We've actually talked about this combo before. It is important when you're maintaining a list or curating or designing a list that fun does actually take the first grip on the idea of the cube. Power max says one thing, but if it's power max and not fun, have you achieved your goals? And fun, as we've talked about, is a highly subjective concept. Every person has their own version of fun. But I would say our play group has mixed feelings about the idea that Sam does enjoy it and thinks it's fun. I just don't, as a person, appreciate cards that allows a player to win through, I guess, limited means. Yes, you can say you tutored for it. Yes, you can say you paid for it and all that. But if another person's investing a lot of time, and I'm going to say this is, it's funny that I take that stance because I'm also running like Fourth of Lingus, which also doesn't really, take much to win with, if anything.
I would,
or Minx and Boo. I can name a lot of these cards.
Minx and Boo and Fourth Year Lingus are absurdly powerful cards. They can win the game, but there's a big difference. Even with a singular card that can have a dramatic effect on a game and can put you in a board-winning or give you a game-winning state, we're talking about a single card that is powerful versus two cards that, as a combo, just instantly win.
And yeah, and another thing we talked about too, and we have, again, this is, if you're thinking we've already talked about this because we've already talked about this, I also have a problem with cards that says you must take this card, and if you don't, you lose because of it, because we made the haha funny joke. I intentionally passed both these components as it came around me. I passed Time Vault. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that card. I'm not a fan of that card. And then I hear on the table, oh my God, Anthony, somebody passed Time Vault, and then Tom ended up winning that game. Thomas ended up winning because he took both the pieces. He doesn't have any stake or dog in the race with this
Correct.
idea. But I don't like cards that take away the drafter's agency, that literally says, hey, dummy, Anthony, you didn't pick this card. You've now cost yourself the game. I don't like that feeling or that vibe out of a card that says you must take this. I've always had this problem. Again, I'm going to keep doubling back because you hear me kind of sound wishy-washy here. The same is true of the Moxen, right? You open up pack one, pick one, you see a Ruby Mox. And you see a Black Lotus.
Right.
They've taken away essentially your agency of the draft because you're not going to pass those over something that would be more appealing unless you're really forcing it to occur. These cards say you must pick me. This is your advantage. You're not taking this advantage as a choice, but you've made that choice. Now you have to own that choice. I'm not a big fan of those cards that force themselves upon you.
Right.
In the best way that I can say.
Okay.
Even though I do run a certain volume of them.
Interesting to me that it seems to be Time Vault, that combo that kind of has that singular, like, you must absolutely take this kind of vibe and aura about it, because That's not the only 2-card combo, obviously, that exists in Magic where you can say, if I have these 2 cards, I can win the game right now. Right?
Because the mana to cast both those are generic.
It is.
There's very little investment.
I would argue that the quality of mana fixing nowadays being as high as it is, obviously we have the new Surveil lands, we have Triomes, we have Fetch lands, we have Shock lands, so there's a plethora of different ways to be able to fix your mana. I actually think that a 0 artifact, 0 color in the way of artifacts, very, very easy to cast. You've also got 2 mana or 2 color combos.
Hold that
allow
thought.
you to win.
We didn't have our drinks. We've been doing this a lot lately.
All right.
From our sponsors, not our sponsors, Sweetwater, Easy IPA, delicious summery type beer. All right, keep
That's
going.
what we're drinking today.
Yep, that's what we did. We already cracked them.
It's July 5th. We've already cracked them. So, are there any 2-card combos in your cube that say, if I have these 2 and I'm not interrupted, I win the game? Do you have any of those?
I don't know. You have to go to... Oh, yeah, I do, actually. I do have one. Yeah, so to answer your question, I do have one. This is very powerful.
Okay.
This goes infinite. You ready for that? Not really. It's kind of funny, though.
Okay.
Caracas plus Emrakul Eon's Torn.
Okay.
Bounce Caracas, pay 15 mana, cast Eon's Torn.
Okay.
Pay 15 mana, bounce.
Okay.
Infinite turns.
Okay.
Way better than Voltaic Key Plus.
Okay. I mean, one is a land, so it's a little harder to interact with. 15 mana is generous.
Keep bouncing that Emrakul, baby.
But yeah, absolutely, that can be a win condition.
It's so dumb.
It's very dumb, but it's wasn't exactly the kind of combo that I was.
It wasn't what you're looking for. I'm not understanding the question. Then I guess.
No. You're absolutely right. Okay, so all right, so we didn't pause recording, but we just paused what we're going to put in the video to go through. So we looked on Cube Cobra and we went to Anthony's list and we looked at all the infinite combos, right? A lot of those combos, or all those combos, let's be honest, some of them are actually combos that you don't really see very much of nowadays in a lot of vintage lists. So a lot of people have removed Kiki-Jiki, much to my chagrin. I like Kiki-Jiki. I can understand its removal. It's a little on the slower side now, right? Paying 5 mana to put a Kiki-Jiki out. It's fragile, but okay, fine. It's pretty good. There's also combos that allow you to recur permanents with things like Hullbreaker Horror. There's also Displacer Kitten and Zerda.
And
so
Baby Teferi.
Baby Teferi. So there's a lot of ways that you can...
One Ring, Blinket.
Yeah,
you can do all
Blink
kinds of
One Ring, absolutely. So there's combos in here that allow you to do stuff, right? But none of them are as egregious as something like the Time Vault combo.
I do like Shieldred the Apocalypse plus Grizzlebrand. I think that's a fun one.
That is
all
fun.
you got to do is have more than 8 life, and you can just go ahead and lock them
Absolutely.
out. Draw cards, kill them.
Very cool.
Fun. It's
very cool. Expensive.
Oh, 1 billion mana.
Right?
But you did it.
Maybe you can cast a Shieldred and reanimate.
In a mono black deck, it's not impossible.
It's not. I mean, reanimating a Grizzlebrand when you've got a Shieldred out.
Dark Rit, yeah.
But requires a lot of pieces.
2.
Requires a lot of pieces of mana.
Yeah.
And it is 2 pieces, but it's not really 2 pieces. Grizzlebrand is expensive to cast. You've probably got to cheat it out. Would you say
no, I'm not going to argue any of that.
So now it's not just Shieldred and Grizzlebrand. It's Shieldred plus Grizzlebrand plus I need to have an Entomb effect. I need to have a Reanimate effect, something along those lines. So even though the combo itself is only 2 cards, in reality, setting that combo up is a lot more difficult. Again, Time Vault is 2 mana, right? Am I wrong?
No.
I don't think so. Let's see.
I don't have Time Vault.
Let's see.
This episode's
3 mana. No, Time Vault. Okay, so Time Vault is 2 mana. Voltaic Key is 1 mana, and then 2 mana, I believe, to activate. So it's only 2 cards, but they're very, very easy to get out, to cast, to activate, all that kind of stuff. So this is where this egregiousness of the nature of Time Vault comes into it. I'll also look at highlight another combo that I very much like myself. So this is... Is it in here? Okay. So this is another combo that I very much like. So this is Witherbloom Apprentice. You familiar with this card?
I am not.
Okay. Witherbloom Apprentice, 1 black, 1 green, creature, human, druid. It has Magecraft. It's a 2/2. Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Okay? Ready for that? So we're going to show you the next one here. Chain of Smog. This is 1 colorless and 1 black. Target player discards 2 cards from their hand. That player may copy this spell and may choose a new target for that copy.
So you just have to have those 2 cards.
That's
But
all you
let
need.
me ask you a question, though.
2
Okay.
cards,
So
I win the game.
yeah, I know. So outside of these cards, this is the problem that I have with these type combos.
And we could go further.
I know we could.
We could go fast as Oracle.
What does Chain of Smog do outside of that combo?
It doesn't do anything.
Well, so I get that this is online, so they don't have to invest cost. They don't have a piece of paper they have to swap out, double sleeving, all the things, right?
Sure.
There's none of this time investment, none of this real monetary. It's just add cards. So I can see the air quotes live the dream of breaking the cube with these combos. For me, it always distills down to slot equity within the cube environment.
Absolutely.
And what does it do outside of that? Now, I realize that, things like Revel Arc, and we've talked about all these before, all these cards aren't really good outside their combo, but
Right.
at least they can kind of stand on their own legs at worst case scenario, or they'll just go to a sideboard. But when I see cards like these, I always wonder what is the incentive of adding them to a paper environment, unless you're just planning on swapping them out for here's my monthly combo. When I see Chain of Smog, though, what else does it do outside of that? I don't want to take a slot in even at 540, especially not at 450, definitely not at 360, to press these type things. If it only does the one thing and it has no other, it has an associated cost of taking the spot, but it has no reach outside of that combo. I don't personally like that.
It's pure power.
It's on rails.
It's pure power. It's purely the power level of I can put 2 cards in my deck and win the game. That's it. It doesn't have any utility outside of all right, being able to force someone to discard a couple of cards, okay, that's fine. Maybe you've been able to dump your entire hand. Maybe you don't have anything in your hand and you're just using it as a him to Turok, as an example, right? So is that powerful enough by itself? Maybe. Maybe you're a reanimate deck and you've got nothing but all of your reanimate targets in your hand. So maybe it actually is good for you to force your opponent to be able to discard, and if they choose to copy that spell back and force you to discard, maybe that's a good thing. So I actually disagree, even though I said it, I actually disagree that it's only ever going to be good in this very specific combo. Because let's be honest, we talked about other cards that exist, and all they do really is they maybe draw a card, but the predominant effect is to put cards into the graveyard. I would look at something like Faithless Looting. Yes, you do get to hand sculpt. Yes, you get to draw a couple of cards, but you do get to put cards in the graveyard. And honestly, most of the time when I'm drafting something like Faithless Looting, I'm thinking secondarily for the hand sculpting, and I'm thinking primarily for the ability to put cards in the graveyard. You follow?
Okay. Yeah,
So,
I do.
and I think, and there's, I don't want to say that there's other cards that have to. This card can exist, I believe, in a cube where you're not only doing what you're doing with it because you're trying to go infinite with a combo.
Okay. It's funny you should mention that. I looked at those cards the other day when I ran the list just to see. I did the comparative analysis you can do in Cube Cobra side by sides, and I want to see what my differences were. And I saw those cards show up, and I didn't understand any of those interactions. I didn't know Chain of Smog plus this other whatever elf that you showed me, druid, whatever it is. I didn't know the interaction exists, and I think there's an intrinsic problem with that idea too. Again, I know this cube is meant to be complex.
Correct.
Accessibility has always been a thing that we've challenged in the past, and I know that there's no way to get on board with this combo until after it's happened to you. So I've already lost this game. I've already lost this draft because you did this, and you Withering
With a Bloom Apprentice.
You've done this
Chain of
thing to
Smog,
me, and you've
GG.
celebrated your victory, GG,
Yes.
and I've now lost. I guess maybe the next time I visit, I hope that combo's in there so I can chase this combo.
Sure. Yeah.
But I struggle with those cards that don't explain themselves directly on the nose. I don't want to have to get
pretty.
Parker Lamascus brought up
plain. I think this is pretty
Parker
straightforward.
Lamascus, who's oftentimes on Lucky Paper Radio, one of the major writers and helps them write a lot of their content, is pointed out this trivia check idea, and this card plays into that trivia check concept, which I love that thought technology of this idea. There's an entire article about it where these cards require you to. Basically, you're sitting at, you're a contestant on Jeopardy right now, and you've been asked a question against other opponents, and you can't answer this question. It's not in your knowledge base. Okay. That was not my knowledge base.
Okay.
I would wonder what the heck these 2 cards existed for. I would look at the magecraft of this. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or source spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I was asking, like, is this some kind of goofy Jun Storm? That's what I literally thought of when you started showing it to me. And I know you could probably do that, I guess.
It's Golgari Storm. It's even better. You don't even need red to make this work.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what we're supposed to do here.
Right.
And it's a weird slow burn type thing. I don't know. I would have never known that other piece even existed or seen that interaction.
I have it in a commander deck.
That's gross. You've added this now?
I absolutely have this combo.
That's fun.
Because
That's fun.
Of course it is.
It's not fun.
It's absolutely fun. It's wonderful. It's 2 cards. I win the game. Let's shuffle up and play the next one.
I suppose.
Right? So similarly with the Power Max cube, right? The reason why these Power Max combos exist in there is because that's the vibe of this cube. Whoever has decided to curate this, so the list that I've actually got pulled up is it's called Power LSV on Cube Cobra. It's Louis Scott Vargas's Power Max cube. There are other versions, there are other curators who have a Power Max cube. Some people will have that exact same opinion of these Power Max sort of representations of this vintage cube, the same way that you do, where they'll think, I don't really want the 2-card combos to be so prevalent and so powerful that they just immediately win the game.
Well, go down one more here. There's another card. This isn't even 2-card combos. This was a card that, as I sat across from it, and it's Comet the Stellar Pup. I hate this Magic card. I'm sorry. I just don't like it. I don't like it. Like, I played against it, and I sat there and lost a game that I had no business losing, because I forget who was rolling the dice. I think it was Christian. It's always Christian. Christian is hitting those rolls like he's in Vegas.
He's hitting 6s.
And he murdered me.
Yeah.
And I just sat there and watched him roll dice for the duration of the entire game. There was no interaction. Not really. It just kept happening over again. I'll go again. All right, cool. All right, whatever, sure. And I lost. The rug got swept underneath me. No matter how much love and care and intelligence I put into my deck, Comet the Stellar Pup just took away the entire game through dice rolling exclusively.
Yes.
I did not. That's a vibe check for me. I got salty and a little. I was laughing. It wasn't like mad, but I'm like, oh my god, this is such a waste of my personal time.
I know your personality.
I'd rather go learn how to do quilting.
I know your personality, Anthony. All right, and this is not to call you out, but I'm going to a little bit. I think if you were the one with Comet Stellar Pup and you just kept rolling 6s and absolutely annihilating someone,
Vegas,
you would be screaming this from the rooftops. You would be talking about it every episode of Uber Cube, and it would be like, man, what a cool card this is, that I can pay 4 mana for this Planeswalker, and if I get super duper lucky with my dice rolls and somehow manage to get enough 6s, that I can potentially turn an unwinnable game into a winnable one. Or I can fashion this huge advantage, regardless of what my position is.
I love something that Usman's doing. So it's been mentioned a lot of times that in most, I guess, the original idea of Cube, a lot of stuff was based on the power maxing of a card. What was the strength of a card from its stats, its power credentials, right? When you looked at it, the anatomy of the card was always tilted towards its power distribution.
Sure.
And it's hard to get away from that. But Usman started doing this in his articles when he's writing them out, is a vibe check. And while this is a cute little pup that's dressed up as an astronaut, and it's a funny card, and it's zany and all the things, there is a vibe check in these cards with these combos. And you go back to when you're talking about Chain of Smog and the trivia check that I got from that didn't give me a good feeling. It makes me feel stupid as a player. There is that opportunity for me to go, oh man, I just didn't understand that. I'm too dumb.
But all you're doing is rolling dice.
Well, so Comet is literally just watching a player just rolling dice. I think it's taking away.
Let's be honest, right?
I don't know.
If someone is fortunate enough to just keep rolling 6s and doubling their roll count,
that's neat.
That's incredibly lucky. I mean, the odds are not in your favor that you're just going to keep rolling 6s. And honestly, most of the time I see this card played, you get one roll out of it, right? You've got a 1 in 6 chance to roll a 6. So maybe you get lucky 1 every 6 times you're playing this and you're rolling those dice. To me, I feel like it's pretty straight. It's straightforward, right? There's nothing hidden on this card. It's not like I'm not bringing this, or you brought this card up. Even if it was me or whatever, we wouldn't be bringing this up because it would be, synergizing with some other piece in the cube that, oh my gosh, I didn't know these two cards or this combo existed, I can absolutely see that argument for Witherbloom Apprentice and Chain of Smog. If you're not familiar with either of those cards, then you're not going to know that there's a combo out there. You could make that argument about Kiki Jiki.
Sure.
You could say that I don't know that there's a card that exists in your cube that allows me to untap a creature when it enters, and therefore, why am I playing this Kiki Jiki? It's 5 mana. So it taps and makes a copy. Like, is that really that good? Is it that good?
No, I get that idea. So you're meta checking a little bit. So
I am meta checking.
We're in franchise players. So kind of to tie off Comet, the Stellar Pup, which I'm not going to read all this crazy text. This was a card that I did not include because it's an uncard, even though it's whatever. It was allowed to be in some form of sanctioned play or commander or whatever. And I've known people tell me this was super powerful. I got it played against me without ever reading this text the first time. I'm getting served by this card. And then I'm flipping it around, reading it, and I'm thinking, what in the hell is this card doing? And it's just rolling dice and winning games. So
it is.
It's a vibe check. And I just don't want...
It's a dice roll check.
But I don't want these cards that create this type of NaCl, these type of vibes in my cube, even though... So power maxing does have... Like, at what point is power maxing too much power, right? There's a level of too many trivia checks,
I
too
don't
much
think
power.
This card is so powerful that it's defining of a power max environment.
No, it's a bad example, but... It is just one of many of the cards in this Power Max Vintage Cube that if you haven't either built this cube or you're not familiar with the intent of each one of these cards, and no one's expected to do that these cards can create a negative vibe in the room or a negative experience. So when you're asking me, why don't I run these combos, these 2-piece combos that are generic with Time Vault and whatnot, the opportunity cost of creating a bad experience for someone is higher than it creating a good experience, in my opinion, unless everyone in the room is on equal vibes. I want to call you out now. When you're talking about running this Chain of Smog combo and whatever that goofy elf is, and I'm telling you, I didn't even know you ran that in a Commander game.
Right.
And Commander is the problem. There's so many problems to unpack with Commander. There can be. We play Commander, but if you're talking about shuffle up, play another game, your expectation is the other 3 players even know that they have a point of interaction in this combo they've never seen before.
I would not be dishonest. And when I say not be dishonest, I say I will be very, as I always do when I'm playing Commander. If I have Witherbloom Apprentice and someone sees it, if they ask me, I will say, this is in. In fact, not even if they'll ask me, I will offer this information voluntarily, and I will say, I am playing this card because I have a combo in my deck where I can play a sorcery, one other card, and I will win the game if it resolves and all the copies resolve.
So,
or Witherbloom Apprentice isn't destroyed while something's on the stack.
I guess it's important for us as curators or designers to know that when we take these out to the field is what is that awareness of everyone that's playing this cube, that all these components are placed together, right? And these interactions. And no one can be expected to understand every part of Magic's histories and all these unique, I guess, tie-in points for each one of these interactions to know where the disruption points are. And sure, once it's been done to you, maybe you can analyze it and talk to your friend, and your friend go, oh, this is how this interaction works with Chain of Smog. Because where do I break this? Or just like we've learned with Kiki Jiki, there is a point where you can actually break that combo.
And there is a spectrum of that when it comes to the experience of Magic players, right? You are going to have players that are going to be familiar with every single combo, right? Regardless of whether it's a Power Max cube, a non-Power Max cube, or any other cube. You can apply that logic to your artifact cube, any cube, right? So, yes, you do want to ensure that there is a fun environment, but how much are you putting on the experience of the players and their understanding of every potential combo or interaction within the cube? Because now I feel like that is definitely a combo that is a little more on the fringe side, right? The Witherbloom Apprentice. I would argue that nowadays it's a lot more known because content that's out there on YouTube.
As of approximately 25 minutes ago to me.
For you, absolutely, right? So now you know it, right?
Sure.
I would be interested to know how many other players. I would be fairly confident in saying that Chris would know this combo. I would say that Tom would know this combo, right? So you've got other enfranchised players that would know. All right, you could maybe say that some of the less experienced players or the people that don't consume as much content would be unfamiliar with it. But does that by itself warrant a lack of inclusion? Because what if you've got a new player that's come into the group, right? Or someone that doesn't have any interest in looking at Vintage Cube or any other content in Magic out there and Twitch or YouTube or whatever, now do you say, well, I don't want to include these other combos, and we don't even have to limit that to 2-card combos because it might create a bit of a feels bad for that player?
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I just want my environments to be inviting, right? And there is, there's always been this kind of swing of Vintage Cube is, air quotes, the portal to Magic, and this is how people find out about or portal to Cube, and this is how people find out about Cube for the first time, and this is what they fall in love with or whatever, right? And then we're always trying to pull them back to the other side where they want to come play my fun zany Cube where everything is, a dragon in a bar type thing. Right. It's a hard sell as is. I feel like if you're going to play this level of Magic, you have to be enfranchised. You've already signed the waiver, if you will, right, that you're entering this battlefield.
Right.
I would not have known a lot of these pieces and how they work together initially. I would have lost an entire draft to them. That's what it. Yeah. Sometimes that's what it takes. I'm not going to do any prep to go play Magic, right? I'm just going to show up, and we're saying Stu's got his Power Max Vintage Cube. This is what we're playing today. Okay, cool. I'm going to lose to these because I don't know my intersections of interaction.
You're going to lose any cube that you don't know if there's combos in there. It doesn't matter how expensive they are or how many cards they are if you're not familiar. This is not something that's limited to the Vintage Cube. It's not something that's limited to Time Vault or Witherbloom Apprentice Chain of Smog or Displacer Kitten or Hullbreaker Horror or any of these other combo pieces, that even the ones that exist in your cube, right? So you have got, like you said, you've got that Gristlebrand Sheoldred combo in your cube. It's a little bit more cheaty-cheaterton, in my opinion, to get it out. You need that reanimate unless you're hoping to be able to hard cast a Gristlebrand after hard casting a Sheoldred, but it exists in there.
There's a check to that one too, though. That one's not intuitive either. And I thanks for Parker Lamascus for coming up with this thought technology, or at least citing this thought technology. But I do like the idea of the trivia checks. I think it's a great idea. Even that one, you wouldn't know that you need to have 8 life unless you have to read the cards, and I get that. But you need to know if you're at 7 life, you can't do the thing. Gristlebrand's going to kill you, right? Correct. But if you're 8 life, you can pull off this idea. Sure. There is a little bit of a trivia check in that idea too, but I think that one's a lot more acceptable. That's just a simple little math problem. That's, you read it, you see it, and you go, oh, okay, I got it. Aha, cool, I'm at 8 life. I'm going to begin this process of drawing these cards and killing them. Some of these others are not as validating to the other players. I guess that's my takeaway, what I'm saying. And I don't
you think you've got that takeaway just because you didn't know it existed?
Yeah, and I think there's new ones always being introduced. This cube's always circulating, always checking me to see if I know this new thing exists. And they're not hyper intuitive. I mean, you'd almost have to pull up the Find My Combos every single time before you played a cube to know. And not everybody's going to see these. I'm looking at some of them in this Power Max. Some of them are 4, but some of them are 2 cards. Complete a subset.
Absolutely.
Where the most powerful one clearly is Emrakul, the Eon's Torn, and Caracas. I mean, you can't. I think everybody should check theirs. I'm pretty sure if you got those 2 cards, you'll get a giggle out of that one. Basically, cast Emrakul for 15. Emrakul triggers, grant you an extra turn after this one. Tap Caracas, return it to your hand, repeat.
I mean, I wish it was when it enters play.
Infinite turns.
I wish it was when it enters play, because then you could have much more fun with Sneak Attack. Okay, so why did I want to talk about this? Okay, because I feel like we have to tie things up, right?
Witherbloom?
It wasn't just about Witherbloom, and it was really me, I suppose, kind of cheerleading a little bit for these combos, because I know that this is a discussion that you and I have had. It's also a discussion that I've had with Chris. Both of you seem to not want to include these automatic 2-card I-wins, right? So Time Vault and the Voltaic Key / Manifold Key, understandable, and I really do understand it as well from I don't want to proxy cards, I don't know what Time Vault costs, I'm sure that's not cheap. There are plenty of other combos that cost pennies. I will say I've got Witherbloom Apprentice and Chain of Smog in a commander deck. They were both cheap cards. You've also got things like Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation,
which I have in a binder. I just never added
it. They're cheap. So there's plenty of ways to put very, very powerful, cheap 2-card combos into a Vintage Cube. So now it's about, why don't we have that, or why do we have this opinion of them, right? Why is there this negativity about the 2-card combos? I actually disagree a little bit about the sort of isolation. I do think that something like Chain of Smog doesn't have to only exist in an environment because it's a combo. I would actually argue even further than that Kiki Jiki, the fact that it costs 5 mana for a 2/2, yes, you can have the incidental ability of being able to copy another value creature is fine. Most players aren't going to want to do that. They want to go infinite because 5 mana for a creature is kind of a big investment to make, right? Would you agree with that?
Well, I want to say this. Is there a rule 0 in Cube from a concept so that during gameplay, when you pull off one of these things and you feel smart and I feel stupid, you did this, and I don't even know until I've seen it, how do you avoid that situation where you're playing against me? And yeah, we're friends, we're peers, but I want to take my cube into the wild, and I go to SEG Con Charlotte again, and I open up my cube, and people are playing it. How do I avoid those vibe situations or those negative vibe situations during these? And I'm just going to keep saying over, and thank you, Parker, those trivia checks where I've now put you on the spot, put you on blast, and I've pulled this off. Maybe you learned it the first time, game 1, you pull it off game 2, whatever. I get all the scenarios where this could be a factor, but you got to think about, I'm going to take this cube over and over to different people. I want my cards in my environment to be fairly self-explanatory, fairly clean for users of my cube to understand what they need to do to win the game.
Sure.
Most of these I've had to be coached on post as to how it happens, and that's fine. That's how we learn. That's how we get better, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
And then a second part of this, the other struggle I have with putting these pieces in here, again, this is a 540, just like the Vintage Cube Online, my personal cube is. 540, you have a density problem with completing these subsets because, these cards aren't as tight as, say, a 360. So completing these combos, they can be trappy or end up dead cards in a draft because you're not drafting the entire cube. That is a secondary consideration. That's why I have not put in, when you were asking about Doomsday and Thoracle, I think they're fine. I don't have a problem with these. It's just now I'm going to put in all these more support pieces that are only standalone around that deck idea, right? I'm going to put in Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, and all these ideas to support this idea for a singular deck that plays this way. I have concerns about that for the card slot equity and the fact that the opportunity cost of drafting that while in a 540 environment. If I was in a 360, I'd be less apt to argue against adding these type combos because they'd be more realized and more frequent, and trivia checks would be dissolved after time because they would become known and part of the meta.
I would argue that these vintage combos
frequency.
Yeah, I would argue, first of all, I think the vintage cube combos that, like the Witherbloom Apprentice Chain of Smog, like Time Vault, like Thoracle Demonic Consultation, I actually think that a combination of Commander, because those are certainly Thassa's Oracle has been, its notoriety in competitive EDH is well known and stated. I would also say that the content that's out there allows people to learn about it, right? Whether or not people like it, I know that there's been discussion about whether or not Vintage Cube is kind of the flagship for Cube, and it is just by virtue of the fact that it's the most accessible from a content perspective, and the fact that you can just go and pay $10 for a Magic Online account, and now you can access it, anytime you like for $10 a draft. So there's that kind of ability for players to understand it just by virtue of the fact that accessibility to information is out there. I would also argue the fact that if you have any cube, and you're talking about taking them out into the wild, if you have any combo, could be a 2-mana, could be a 2-card, 3-card, whatever. If you don't have a sheet of information that you're handing out to all those players, anybody could fall into that where someone combos off and they can say, well, I didn't know that combo was in this cube, and now I feel bad because I was expecting to win by turning creatures sideways. I don't feel like that is a valid enough argument, because I feel like you can apply that to any cube that has a combo that someone isn't aware of. Now that you can always generate that feel bad. And also, is that feel bad just restricted to the fact that someone won with a combo, be it 2 cards or 3 cards or whatever? That feel bad could be that they drafted a card that they thought was good, that they weren't able to get the support for. Could be that the whole cube wasn't drafted. Could be that it just wasn't powerful enough in the framework of the cube, and they thought that something could work. It didn't, and they get salty about it. So that salt factor, I almost feel, can be so individually specific down to the personality of the player. I wouldn't, at least for me, I don't want to see a power vintage cube, which for me, at least if it was mine and I was curating it, I would want to curate it for the notoriety and that power that I would expect and I would want to see out of a vintage cube. If you want to put your pet cards in a cube, that's great. Do I want to see them necessarily in a power vintage cube? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on where they fit in the rest of the cube. But I kind of feel that power, that vintage, the fact that all the Moxen and Black Lotus and Time Walk and Ancestral Recall, all those cards exist in there. Why not make that distinction that this is where the absolutely most bonkers powerful cards and combos have ever existed in the history of Magic? This is their home. This is their home, is in this cube. And if you never see them again, and if you never see these absolutely degenerate and broken combos in another one of your cubes, absolutely more power to you. And if you want to curate environments that are much more friendly to newer players and more turning creatures sideways and all that kind of gameplay, then that's great. Because you know what? I can pick up any one of your other cubes, your horror cube, your fem cube, any one of those, and say that there's less combo-centric wins available and you're going to have less of those kind of feel-bad moments because players are just going to win by more playing fair Magic. But the unfair Magic, sometimes, that's all I want.
No, I feel like I want to put Emrakul and Karakas in every cube. Take us to the...
But anyway, this has kind of been a bit of an After Dark episode. And I understand that this has been a conversation that has happened quite a bit recently. There's been some criticism about creativity. There's been some criticism about some of these degenerate combos and where they are positioned as far as Magic is concerned. And this is honestly just me kind of stating my own opinion, as I tend to do, because this is my podcast, so I can do that, but we pays our money, we takes our choice. But just for me, I like the fact that there are these environments that are out there that we can do degenerate stuff and play it, and then it's over. And I will say, Anthony, it's time very soon that we play a commander deck, because now you know that this combo exists in my Tasigur combo deck. It's time.
I'm going to insert white noise because I do the audio engineering for the podcast every time Stu talks. All right, so that was really fun. Thank you very much. Again, everyone, add Emrakul and Karakas to your combos and take us to the socials.
As always, a huge shout out to all of our Patreons, to Patrick, to Jeff, to Nick Lapointe, to Chris Fitzgerald, Timber Dragon, Brian Keaton, Lord Justice, Nick Lapointe, Preston, and Sam McKenna. Huge shout out and a big thanks to all of you guys for supporting the show and helping us keep the lights on here at Ubercube. If you want to get in on the conversation, go to the facebook.com/groups/MTGCube drafting page. A lot of fun conversation. A lot of members over there talking about Cube. And if you want to support the show, you can also use our inkedgaming.com/Ubercube affiliate link. Go and get all kinds of cool products, playmats, dice bags, mouse pads, custom and large volume
stuff.
Products. If you want to reach us at the socials, you can find us on Bluesky, ubercubemtgpodcast.bsky.social. You can also find us at Twitter at ubercubemtgpod. If you got a longer question or comment about this episode or anything else with the podcast, or about one of Ubercube's,
many things. We're over 1,100 as far as the
cubes.
Facebook goes.
An Uber Bears cube.
A
Maze cube.
The Uber Maze.
Uber Bears cube, yep. You can reach us at ubercubemtgpodcast@gmail.com. As always, come hang out on the Discord and patreon.com/ubercube. Again, a big thanks to all of our Patreons. And for last but not least, we do host our content on YouTube at Ubercube MTG Podcast 747. If you just, feel like an alternative format, there you go.
And then we're going to say the thing that we always say here at Ubercube is Happy Cubing!